Okay, we are live.
Excellent. And we are ready to rock indeed. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to Level Up Thursdays. And as you know, on Select Thursdays, we connect with a select roster of speakers, experts to give you the inside track on what you need to fast track and know to run your app business on the path to sustainable growth. And in these times, all advice is good advice. I'm your host, Peggy Ann Saltz, mobile analyst, tech consultant, founder of Mobile Groove, a content marketing and app marketing consultancy that I have. And I'm also your host, as I said. Today, Level Up Thursdays is all about engagement versus retention, focusing on the right metric to drive subscription growth. Very important topic, tough topic too. So we're going to look at how engagement and retention relate to each other. We're going to look at key tactics to encourage longer and stronger retention curves. And a bonus for you, and this one I love, a look into the surprises that can pique user curiosity, boost the numbers, because, hey, it always has to be memorable at some level. Otherwise, your users are not going to come back. So my guest is the product manager for Sago Mini World, the app that delivers, and I'll quote because it's just too cute not to, giggles to millions of kids around the world. You need that these days, right? Helping them to learn while they play. He previously led the growth marketing team at Sago Mini and its sister studio, Tokaboka, companies that count over 350 million app downloads, and very important for this show, a subscription model. So he also advises growth stage companies on scaling UA, product and attribution. Welcome, Brennan Clark. Great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thanks, Peggy.
So I said it at the top, games for kids, helping them play and learn at the same time, a subscription app as well. Really not the easiest combination. I do see a lot of value in education apps, but subscription apps can be tough. You need a value proposition that just does exactly that, offer value, but you also need a robust framework, and how you approach it has to be, it has to fit the demographic. Now, I see we already have a slide up here, in fact, the whole time, so you can just launch into it, Brennan. Tell me about how you approach retention.
Yeah, so we kind of look at retention features in two different buckets. So one is to deepen engagement. That really impacts the monthly retention. So that's figuring out how do you bring users back day after day, week after week, and continue to build like this short-term retention. And then the second is extending your lifetime. So for your various audience, you might have certain blockers or certain friction points to long-term retention. So figuring out how do you remove those friction points and solve for the user's needs over a longer lifetime. So that's going to impact your annual retention. One example that I think we're going to touch on a bit later is our target demographic is 3 to 5 year olds. So a 6-year-old, the app is not necessarily designed for them at this point. So one of our initiatives in the next little bit is to design features for those 6, 7 year olds so that we can extend user lifetime and extend that LTV.
I love the idea of removing friction because we hear a lot about that. But how are you zeroing in on that? Because I imagine you'd have to watch activity in the app, but there could be some modeling that goes in way before, in the design phase, prototyping, paper prototyping. Give me an idea about, how you understand what you need to improve, what you need to remove.
Yeah, so I mean, this is an interesting point. Before the whole lockdown situation, we used to have kids coming in and testing our apps all the time. So we would have weekly app testers come into the office, test all of our various features, our games. That trying to do that virtually has been an interesting challenge. But so a lot has been uncovered through those types of sessions. And then next is more kind of working with consultants in the education space, in the kids development space, and figuring out what solutions are needed for various age ranges. It's really different from a 3 to 4 year old and a 4 to 5 year old. So understanding the needs of those users and then designing for what they need and what they're capable of.
Before you take the slide off, and I think you can stop sharing in just a moment, Brennan, because then we can go back, because we're going to talk a little bit, then we're going to go back to another slide. But, deepening engagement, What kind of phase is that? We always think about engagement, and I'm hearing a lot in the industry, interestingly enough, that it's not the way to do it, which is day 1, day 7, day 14, day 30. There's probably a different curve for this. Where is the deepening engagement curve in that impacts monthly retention? Are you looking at a specific time frame in the curve? Because you do that, and then you look later to remove the friction, as you said, and learn from those examples that you're talking about.
Yeah, so I mean, that's this framework, you can actually break it down a little bit further. So the deepening engagement, I guess there are two main areas where we look at that curve. First is during a 24-hour free trial period. So we offer every user 24 hours to try our full app experience for free on download. So in that free trial period, we really need to focus on, having the user play as many games and a variety of games as possible. So we actually have a number of if they play 10 games, they are highly likely to subscribe at the end of that 24-hour period. So that's the first engagement period. And then second would be month to month. So figuring out how many times is a kid opening the app within a given month, and how is that changing over time?
Okay. That's really interesting because the first day, I guess there's a lot of cross promo going on, a lot of, oh, you were just playing this, you might like this, or
Yeah.
experimenting, a lot of that going on. That's a very exciting approach because that is my next question, It's one thing to have a great framework, well thought out, which you obviously do have. It's another, however, to get moms and dads to commit to recurring costs here, for this is a subscription app, as we said, and you have to get people to commit to the app, to paying for it. One way, as you said, is the free trial. We'll get to pricing a bit later, but just overall, how are you doing this? Is this a mechanism based on engagement and metrics?
Yeah, so it's really about engagement and metrics. I mean, the first kind of low-hanging fruit that I like to say is that we just build a fantastic product. We have a score of content developers, artists, everything that bring meaningful design into every game that we launch. So we're launching 5 new games per year. And so really the product speaks for itself. The whole 24-hour free trial, it's really this, try before you buy, where we let the product do the talking. We have, some competitors in the space who have really strong IP. Maybe they have, Disney IP or various other, larger, more well-known characters and everything. They don't necessarily need the try before you buy because the characters are so established that can really do the talking. We let the gameplay do the talking on our side of things because we don't have that brand recognition, but we have, the strong, meaningful, gameplay, character design, all that when parents and kids actually try these games, they realize how well built they are and how much thought has been put into these games.
I imagine that really does resonate right now because, kids are not in school, they're not in preschool, they're, this has to be a way to add value to the learning experience because it just has to be very different. And as you said, great IP, yeah, it's entertaining, looks kind of cool, but that's not going to cut it, I think, with parents. Is that what you're seeing? What have
Yeah.
you seen actually since COVID, I guess, is also another question because I guess, work-life home balance is very different. It's a very different world. What have you seen and what have you seen that parents value?
Yeah. So, I mean, as a whole, the industry has done quite well since the lockdown. I think, apps for kids have provided a very meaningful and helpful
Mhm.
solution for parents and for kids alike since the start of the lockdown. So one thing is just in general, we've seen gameplay go up. We've seen, time spent in app go way up, subscriptions, everything. But I
Mhm.
think another thing is that parents and kids have enough time now where they're sitting at home and trying different games that competition is actually up. So we're seeing the really well designed, the thoughtful games rise to the top a bit more during this period
Mm.
because parents have the time to test all these different apps and see what that in-app experience is like. So the really well built apps are really rising to the top.
But then to your point, I mean, you have a background in product and you obviously get the importance of content and narrative. I'm talking to a lot of marketers out there who say that, if you get content and you get product right, you have over half the battle because that's what it's about. It's about the content. And I said at the top, and I really do like this. We have a lot of people on the show here and people I interview as well at Mobile Groove talking about if you're going to nail it, it's got to be memorable. It has to be something special. And you've got a little bit of magic as well. You have surprises. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so surprises is actually a new feature that we've recently launched. So essentially what it is a daily activity that changes every day. So the kid will come into the app, it'll be with a single one of our characters, and they won't know what the activity is. So every day there's this kind of new reward for coming back into the app. So there are about 6 new activities now and 40 characters that they can play with. So it provides a variety of different play experiences and various characters that the kid has engaged with before. And so essentially what that is doing is providing this like variable reward for kids. It builds the anticipation where every day the kid wakes up, they know there's a new activity in the app that they can go and experience. And it's with
Mhm.
one of their favorite characters. So it's, building that anticipation plus building a more meaningful, deeper connection between the kid and the character.
Mhm.
And so
And
one
it's a
interesting
version of
one
hooking them
interesting
as well. I was gonna
yeah,
say it's a very
exactly.
smart way of keeping them very interested and keeping them hooked.
Exactly. And so what we've seen actually since launching this is about a 15 to 20% increase in app opens per month, which is obviously pretty substantial when it
That
comes to a
is
single
very
feature.
significant, yeah.
Yeah.
Understatement, Brennan, you've done really well.
Yeah, yeah,
Some
it's
attention
been
span out there,
fantastic.
and you've got them opening that many more times.
Yeah,
That's something.
it's been
Okay.
great. Yeah.
So tell me about the metrics. We talked about the impact on the app opens, very significant, but it's also about like, what are the metrics? And we've got people in our audience who are saying, what metrics do I even focus on for that matter? You've got app opens is one you're looking at. You're also looking at that on day one. You give people a free trial. How many games are they playing? If they play X number of games, boom, they're in the funnel. Onboard them. They'll likely sign up for subscription, home free. So you do have a science around the metrics. Which ones do you watch to say, for example, to drive subscription growth?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to touch on there is that it's never a great idea to look at a single metric. It's more a confluence of various metrics that you should be looking at in tandem. Um, I guess it'll vary depending on the question that you're looking to answer. So the question we're looking to answer in our free trial experience is different from our year 2 retention or extending lifetime. Um, yeah, and so I guess kind of looking at the metrics in tandem, I do find that some marketers, they focus in on a single metric. So for example, conversion rate of a new sell screen without looking at
Mhm.
the impacts of, down funnel events. So if, you're focusing on a free trial when you're selling a subscription, how does that impact your free trial to paid conversion rate? How does that impact your month 1 churn? So these various metrics will actually be impacted by the changes, top of funnel. Um,
Mhm.
and really that's all feeding into revenue. The reason that we use these metrics is because they're leading indicators, but at the end of the day, everything is really focused down to revenue.
Mhm. So that's the one to watch. You mentioned just briefly, I was going to ask you, where do marketers make their biggest mistakes? And I think I'm hearing here one is when they only focus on one metric. But
Yeah.
could you give me other examples? Because again, this is something that it's going to be different for a lot of different apps, granted, but there are going to be some rules of thumb and some things that marketers are just missing.
Yeah, I would say so. One of the things that's interesting for startups is that retention doesn't actually kill growth for a long time. So they look at retention in the short term and say, okay, we're growing quite a bit. Retention is fine. We don't have to worry about it too much. But essentially, if your retention is not great, if say 70, 80%, it's arbitrary based on the app category. That eventually will kill you if your acquisition is not where it needs to be.
Mm,
Um, so I think a lot of marketers fool themselves into thinking that the retention is okay, when 6, 12 months down the road, growth will go to zero because that retention is just a leaky bucket.
Yeah. I'm just curious, we have to buzz through a couple of questions, but while we're talking about the leaky bucket, and I've
Yeah.
got you here and you're obviously cued into retention, leaky bucket, big problem. Do you have any shortcuts?
Unfortunately, there are no shortcuts.
Okay, I was hoping. I was just hoping I'm gonna get that one marker who's like, "Yeah, we got it," but probably there is no way, to be fair.
No, yeah. So I mean, again, it comes back to I realize I'm still sharing my screen, which I probably shouldn't be. But
Oh,
this
continue.
framework, right?
Okay,
This
yeah,
framework
we'll keep
is this framework is like something that's more robust and you can think about over long periods of time. And it's not, flip the switch. Users are, they're engaged and they're retained. It's something that you
Mhm,
have to think about over the long term. You can't just, send a quick push notification, get a bunch of users back in the app. That might help your engagement over, your weekly active users, but long-term
mhm,
retention, it actually might hurt it. So that comes back to that, looking at your various metrics in tandem, because there are unintended consequences to much of the things that you're doing.
okay. So you can stop sharing that for a moment, Brandon. We're gonna come back 'cause we got another slide, right? So I'll
Yeah,
switch the topic for a moment. Boom, there you are. Okay. Um, Pricing is another big one, right? I talked to a
yeah,
lot of marketers. I've done some research on this, and it was very interesting that a number of marketers, in a survey even, they're not really even picking the right price. Many of them were pricing themselves too cheaply. So it was like, because if I don't have a feeling that I need to commit, that it's a value that I need to value really, something that's cheap might not be that valuable. Something that's too expensive, again, a different. Now you've got a completely different approach because you've got the try for the first 24 hours. Other people have a straight hard paywall. It's like, no, you're not going to look at anything until you pay.
yeah.
Just wondering how you arrive at the right pricing model. Maybe there's some advice there for others who want to do it or change it for that matter.
Yeah, so I mean, one overall kind of inefficiency in the subscription model is that you have this high floor, but you have the low ceiling. You
Mm,
don't like our max LTV over a given year for Sago Mini World is $60. I'm sure there are a ton of parents out there that would be more willing to pay 100, 200, $300 for the value that they're getting out of Sago Mini World. But because you have
mhm,
this like single flat price, you can't hit the ceiling of your revenue. So that's the first
yeah,
thing, and that can genuinely or generally be solved with cross-selling, upselling, and all that.
mhm,
Um, Second is that there are various kind of tools that you can use in your onboarding, in your pricing, where we tried this intro plan. So for the first month, users would pay 99 cents
mhm,
for a full month of full access to Sago Mini World. That was this kind of low barrier to entry where we gave them, instead of just the 24-hour trial, we gave them a full month to try Sago Mini World. And that actually really helped with revenue. Using a model like that, it gives parents enough confidence where over a month, they know that their kid is coming back and using the app enough where they will pay for that app full price.
mhm.
Uh, Another thing I would look at is geo-specific pricing.
I was just gonna ask that. Go ahead, yes.
It really, so one of the like I suggest any subscription company go out and peg your pricing against Netflix's pricing. So there's Netflix, Spotify, all the big subscription products. They've tested so much in terms of geo-specific pricing that the first thing that
Mm,
you should do is peg against one of those kind of geo-specific prices. For example, in Turkey, Netflix costs 35% of what it costs in the US. You should be
huh.
doing the same thing. You shouldn't be testing. If you're a startup or growth stage company, you probably don't have the resources to test Turkey specific pricing or like every single country. But instead, you can leverage one of these larger competitors that has, really tested every single country.
That's very interesting. I was also gonna ask you that because what I'm seeing, and would be the case in your app as well, right? It's a global world. I'm talking to companies, Indian education companies, that they're
Yeah,
getting global reach because at the end of the day, if it's the English language, that has a lot of geos in the world where it works. And how do you adapt to that? So that's a really good piece of advice there, to sort of have a benchmark and work against that and have that in your mind as a model. What about I talked about the hard paywalls, the flexible pricing. Um, you do a bit of both, really. Maybe you could tell me why you didn't choose something a little harder. I know that in media, newspapers, magazines, etc., it's really like um, it's hard to say what is the value of another article. So would I just say, oh, yeah, 5, and then number 6, you start paying? So a number of them are saying, hey, no, roll that back. Go to something that's hard at the stop
Yeah.
and make people commit. Why didn't you choose that?
So the way I would explain this is that Sago Mini, we don't have too much brand awareness, but we have strong brand affinity.
Mm-hmm.
So not too many people know about us, or not as many as we would like, but the parents that do know about us love us. They love the product, they love the characters. So really our goal when a user downloads our app, our goal is to get them to try the product because we know the product will speak for itself. So our aim there is really just have this open, full access free trial because we know that we'll have a higher likelihood of converting those users. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in the same breath, because our brand awareness is low, they probably don't know our characters and are less willing to pay upfront, on
Got it.
immediate download. So we don't force that paywall.
So it's probably where, in these times, right, where probably content marketing, some
Yeah.
some mommy blogs, some influencer marketing, that will probably all be coming into play. Is that also already a part of your strategy? Where does that fit in?
So content marketing, we're just kind of looking at that
Mhm.
with kind of a new lens. We're starting to do more
Okay.
parent-based content. We actually now have a parent app that's specifically focused on delivering value to the parents.
Mhm.
So that's our first kind of venture into that more content side of things. We have strong relationships with Apple, Google, all the platforms. We, run a fair amount of paid acquisition.
Mhm.
Um, we haven't done too much in terms of actual content marketing, but instead really focus on gameplay in all of our marketing. So gameplay trailers, whatever you may have it.
Oops, are you still with me? Yeah? Okay. Lost you there for just a moment. We're gonna say you're focusing on the gameplay and on the product, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Which makes a lot of sense because product is the new marketing. I hear it so often now. I mean, last year it was like, oh yeah, but now it's like you feel that 2021, that's going to matter. And you have a product background, and you have a retention first framework as well. Could you give me an idea about the mechanics here? Because you have to have sort of like a loop. There's a mechanic. There's something baked in. Surprises are very, very smart. I like that. But give me an idea about how the mechanics sort of brings it all together.
Yeah, so I mean, the core of that is building anticipation and some sort of regular cadence to your content, to your gameplay. So we have
Mhm.
a very stable, 5 games per year is what we launch. And then we have these new surprises as well. So we have a very consistent cadence that we advertised before as well. So, 1 month out, users will know that they have a game coming next month. That keeps them subscribed, keeps them engaged. And so building that anticipation in app, in our marketing, that is what keeps kids and parents coming back and continuing
Mhm.
to pay for the app.
Okay. Now you can go back to sharing your screen, Brennan, because we're going to
All
talk
right.
about the question that we discussed, IDFA, right? You can't do a webinar these days without discussing it because it's all about having as many touch points as you can because hey, at the end of the day, user level data rather is pretty much toast. So you have a slide that's going to tell me a little bit more around your workaround. So why don't you just walk me through this one?
Yeah, so this is really talking about that 24-hour conversion period that we're
Yeah.
about to have with the SK ad network in iOS
Yes.
14. So this is really on the product side of things. For
Mhm.
most subscription apps, unless you have that paywall up front, you're not going to have much purchase subscription data in that first 24 hours. So really we have to default to engagement as our core events that we should be optimizing towards. So I included a graph here on the right that kind of looks at the number of games that a user plays during the 24-hour trial. So if they don't subscribe, the average is about 8.5. If they do subscribe, they play about 13 games. And there's a threshold in there that's about 10.5 games, where if they hit that
Right.
threshold of games played, they are very, very likely to become a subscriber. And so you should really be looking for events that provide that signal of a high LTV user down the line.
Yeah.
So understand what are your engagement metrics, your engagement thresholds in those first 24 hours that'll signal a purchase or a subscription down the line.
It's really well thought out, Brennan. Did you just look at behavior in app, look at your metrics, and build this from it? Is that sort of backwards engineered, or did you just
Exactly, yeah.
nail it? Okay.
Exactly. So this, you kind of backwards, and it's very much trial and error.
Mhm.
We also looked at time spent in app during that first 24 hours. So look for signal of eventual subscriptions, and you do have all that data. So you can kind of trial and error and see what are the engagement thresholds for various metrics that hold
Mhm.
up as high LTV users down the line.
Okay. So you can go back to not sharing your screen, Brennan, and we're going to wrap it up because this is the part that people love. It's the tweetable part, right? It's the social media sharing part. It's the swag. Top number one tip. Or if you want, because hey, here we are, end of November, and moving in to another slightly bleak month, uh, weather-wise at least. Your favorite motto as we seek to establish a work-life balance for winter coming. So winter is coming. I felt like a little Game of Thrones there for a moment. Yes, no, winter is coming. What would you suggest? What do you want to leave us with, Brennan?
So I guess the motto would be that great products make everything easier. Great products are fun to work on too. So I guess that covers the second point, is that I would rather be stuck at home working on a fun, great, well-built product than one that isn't. So it just makes everything easier in life.
Mhm. Well, you gotta love what you do. I mean, what about yourself? I mean, how is your life? Is that what it is? It's work from home, maybe working on great product as in your next launch, right? The one
Yep,
for the children to grow as they grow.
exactly. Yeah. So a lot of work. I enjoy work. I also just got an 8-week-old puppy that I am.
You didn't have enough work
So
before, right? Now you do.
exactly. Yeah. So I'm learning how to clean up the pee off the ground and everything.
Deal with the reality. That's what it is. It's
Exactly. Yeah.
the reality of life. Well, this is delightful, Brennan. I'm sure that I'm going to come back to because I write for a lot of outlets as well. And our listeners, our viewers, rather, they like to continue the conversation. How would they do that? How would they keep up with you?
Connect with me on LinkedIn, Brennan Clark on LinkedIn.
Okay. I think I've done that already. And if I haven't, I'm going to do it right after the show.
I
Great to
think you
have
have.
you
Yeah.
here, Brennan. Thanks for sharing. And also a little bit of inspiration. Good luck with the puppy.
Thank you very much,
Now you know
Katie.
what a challenge is in life, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, thank you, as I said, for sharing. And thanks to everyone out there for tuning in. I just want to let you know that we are going to take a little break, a short pause at Level Up Thursdays. We're working on channels, though, in the background. We're thinking through new channels that are more customized, more bite sized, giving you what you want to know, the way you want to know it, and the way you want to receive it. So, in the meantime, while that work is going on, check out the playlist of all the other shows and also the Mobile Growth Summit channel on YouTube. So until then, this is Peggy Ann Saltz, your host, signing off until we're back better than ever. Watch for that. I'll watch for you. Have a great day.